reawaken to your immortal identity and discover life between lives wisdom. Presented by the Michael Newton Institute. Hi there.
Hi, Vibecke. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Indrani?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
I'm
So,
so
hi,
excited
everyone.
for today. I must say, I'm really excited for our first guest today. So please, would you share what we're doing today?
Yes, so firstly, a very warm welcome to all of you to discover life between lives wisdom. That's Vibecke and I, we've been sharing our thoughts, our observations, our learnings in our last couple of episodes. But today's episode is very special because we have with us a special guest. She's someone that I share a lovely, warm, loving soul connection with. And what I'm very keen to share with all of you is she's also been my teacher. So she's a friend, she's a teacher, and she's a person I really truly feel deeply blessed, Vibecke, to have connected with. And we have with us today someone who Vibecke will be introducing in great details, Aasha Warriar. She is our guest speaker, someone who will be sharing her knowledge, her learnings, her experiences with her hundreds and possibly thousands of clients and students over time. And what we're going to share and discuss today is the birth and life choice process. So, in the life between life space, why will any soul choose a lifetime, an incarnation with birth defects that can last a lifetime and bring, a lifetime of rejection, a lifetime of loneliness? Why will a soul choose that? And what does such a lifetime teach us? Asha will be sharing all of that with us in today's episode. And Vibecke, I request you to please introduce our very dear guest for today's podcast, Aasha Warriar.
Thank you, Indrani. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce her, and I'm really excited. So let's get started. She is a certified regression therapist and trainer, as you mentioned, and co founder of Clover-Leaf Learning Academy and Mera Mann Foundation. She's actually got 18 years of hands on experience as a therapist in various modalities, from past life regression therapy, age regression and inner child integration therapy, clinical hypnotherapy, accident surgical trauma release, and music healing therapy. And that's just to mention a few, actually. And she's not only that, she's a gold medalist with a master's degree in zoology. So, Aasha Warrior, she conducts training programs for individuals and corporate houses and has been a presenter at various international convention and congresses for regression therapy and was actually the chairperson for the 6th World Regression Therapist Congress in Goa in 2017. So this woman, she has a lot of experience, and I'm super excited to introduce Aasha Warrior to the Discover Life Between Lives Wisdom podcast. Welcome to you.
Thank you. Hello, Indrani. Hello, Vibecke.
Hi, Asha.
Thank you.
Asha, firstly, a lot of love and deep gratitude for joining us today. And I think, life
Thank
comes
you.
a full circle, if I may say so, because all those memories of the World Congress in Goa, the Arts Foundation, the program that we had in Mumbai, in India, Turkey, World Congress there. So that also makes me say that Asha is a board member of Earth Foundation, and I have seen her present in the World Congress. I've attended those sessions, and storehouse of knowledge and experience sitting with us today, Vibecke. So deep gratitude on behalf of Mighty Newton Institute.
Thank you so much. And maybe I can say this, it's like Namaste from India. Okay?
Namaste. Asha, what I wanted to ask is, when we go through the life between lives sessions with
Mm-hmm.
clients, we have seen, and I think we've also, seen it in many sessions for that matter, that there are some souls who choose a life which then in that incarnation as a human being, we see them go through with birth defects and something that they'll, struggle the entire life with. Now, in your experience with all the clients that you've worked with, what's this connection? I need to understand, and I would like you to share your understanding with our viewers. What is this connection? Why will a soul in the life selection room, in that space, choose a lifetime with birth defects? That means they're walking into this lifetime, walking into that incarnation with something which challenges them all through. And it can create, as one said, rejection, loneliness, so many factors that probably the foundation of which would be the element of deep rejection and abandonment because of that. What would your thoughts on that be?
So, Indrani, what you've picked up is an amazing topic in the entire panorama of how a soul chooses its life, correct? Birth defects is something whereby it's not only related to the physical body at times, you know. Yes, there are probably birthmarks that might be in areas of your body which count as a birth defect. Now, I'll probably give you some examples later on, but that is one part of the story. Sometimes it's a kind of a mental challenge. You know, when we say that a person or a child is challenged mentally, okay, that's another big portion. And of course, when you put the two together, you have all kinds of, I don't like to use the term, but when a client comes in and when they use the term handicap, something that they cannot deal with without assistance, correct? So there are multiple kinds of birth defects, including the fact that even birth trauma itself, the process of birthing, so maybe the fetus is absolutely fine, but at the time of birth, there is a trauma. So that is a birth trauma, which will lead to some kind of a birth defect. You know, at times we have been able to regress clients or persons that are interested to understand why they have psychosomatic illnesses or psychological issues, and it goes straight into the birth trauma. So birth defects for me is a very large topic. We could simply go with how birthmarks remind you of past trauma, past issues that you need to resolve in this lifetime. That's one aspect. Maybe something like a cleft, you know, a lip cleft, an upper lip cleft is a birth defect, so to say. How did that happen? Okay. Sometimes uh, I have yet to actually go into the depth of that one case. We have still not gone into it, but you know, you have like an additional finger. So we still haven't been there. This person just connected. It's interesting when you throw a topic out in the universe and all the kinds of possibilities seem to pop up. So this person has connected, asking, is it possible? And it's just curiosity. There is no problem. But just like you, me, anybody who is a regression therapy, we understand that curiosity is not always the best reason for a regression. So he's taking his time, and whenever he comes through, maybe sometimes I can share that with you later. So, to narrow that down, birth defect for me is a choice the soul makes in order to learn a lesson, which perhaps needs to be reminded. Otherwise, when I come into life, the chip, the actual chip of the purpose of life is taken out. So, I may not remember. I may still continue to do my old stories and problems and carry on with that.
So, interestingly, while you were sharing this, it takes me to a particular client who I've done LBL with, and there are two defects in this present lifetime that she's grappled with and grappling with. This one is, of course, there's a congenital heart issue, and the other thing, she's had issues with her hips. And she's an
Okay.
individual who's very slim built. I mean, I think the fat quotient in her body would be either bordering on a bit lower than what should be there. And
Okay.
yeah, and I've seen that issue, that on her not so good days, I've seen her dragging her feet and walking and things like that. So in LBL, what was addressed and what we came across is she's had multiple lifetimes where she's been the provider of a lot of care.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that in the life selection room, she was okay, because of her soul's contracts with other souls, to manifest a lifetime where she's undergoing a lifetime where she's given a lot of care and pampering, not just from the
Correct.
family, even close friends. Those little things where people instinctively reach out and help her, and she seems to completely, like a magnet, draw it in this life. And what she concluded was that because she's coming to this, it's a lot like she's kind of clearing her debit credit imbalance with those souls who across lifetimes she's been the provider of care, and this lifetime, in one lifetime, she's receiving it to somehow clear that, as I said, her accounts with those souls.
That's right.
uh,
Mm.
what is very interesting, Asha, is that post that session, one of the key things that has been observed is that the lady has taken on a lot of physical training to improve her core strength. She's done a lot and is continuing to do a lot. She's in her 50s, and she's definitely physically stronger.
Amazing. See, that's very important that you mentioned it, Indrani, because everything that is not working for you is there for a reason. When you understand the reason, or when you feel, if I may use the term, peaceful at the level of your soul, then you do something to change it. And not only for this woman, I uh, would want to say something more, that she, being who she is, your client, who she is, will also inspire only those people to come closer to her that need to learn perhaps patience, or how to be of service to somebody. So each person, sometimes people say, oh, it's very easy to say everything is karmic and we don't believe it. And, it could just be that this one person needs help and therefore five people are helping her. But that's not true. It cannot always be true. There are no absolutes in the world of regression therapy. So if she has chosen life choices, why do we have the concept of life choices in interlife? Because if the two of us have pending issues, have pending karma, either plus or minus, only if the two of us meet can we help to resolve that and even it out, ease it out, right? So you have I'm seeing a complete panorama of cases, a lot of cases which are suddenly popping up. I probably said that, okay, I'll talk about 5 cases, but there are so many of them. You are aware, in 2017 during the Congress, there was a video that we had shown of a child with cerebral palsy, right? And now this child, the reason that he comes in at the age of 9 to work with regression therapy, they come from a background that doesn't really believe in regression therapy. But as we say, in times of desperation, we reach out, even try to hold on to simple things that can help us to survive. So when the parents brought him in, and today this child is about 16. It's about, yeah, he's about, I think, 15 or 16. It's not as if he hadn't he has it's not as if he doesn't have to undergo surgery. He did. But the way he handled his surgery, the way he handled the post surgical trauma, the way he has recouped from that, that is really different. So, we do not claim, regression therapy does not claim that if somebody comes in with CP, cerebral palsy, that we can reverse the process. No, the soul has chosen that for its own learning, for the learning of the parents, perhaps for the learning of the grandparents, which was a bigger part of the story than the parents. Okay. And interestingly, we were able to understand from ancestral lineage how the great grandmother, who had lost her arms to polio in that age and time, and she was an attachment with the child, and therefore his hand is also kind of stuck. He can't move it. But as soon as we work with the ancestral history, there is movement in the fingers. He's able to grasp better. So what this case tells me is this one child is a soul that has taken upon itself to work and help the family line to heal. Not only are his parents better than what they were 9 years ago, his grandparents have kind of evolved, if I were to use that word, and he has helped them and through them to clean up the ancestral history, to clean up the negative space of the ancestors. Okay. So, why does a soul choose? Why would anybody? This child is brilliant. Why would a brilliant child choose to be confined to a wheelchair, to be confined to braces? He has to walk with braces on his knees. But if I see the progress from being carried around till the age of 9, he had to be carried around, not even 9, 11. He had to be carried around everywhere to today that he can walk on his own with support, of course. But his life has healed, his life has inspired others to heal. And the beauty is, even at the age of 11, Indrani, this child would say, why don't you make a documentary on my life? It will inspire others. Okay. It tells me that the soul is far wiser than the human mind. And it comes through as a guidance that maybe you can use my case and other people will be inspired to come in and heal their past, issues that were created in different lifetimes.
Asha, this brings into my space too. There was a little boy I used to work with. It was his mother actually who used to first come for therapy. So, there's a lot of family issues, marriage dynamics, the father mother having issues. So, this is a typical business family. There are two daughters, and after a long gap, the mother has a son. So the boy is the one who has the same issue that this boy you're talking about had. Now, when he was brought in for therapy, the mother felt, starting from foreign energies to dark force to walk-ins to parasites, everything in that element was told to me. So I said, okay, may I meet the boy? So the boy comes along. What a beautiful light soul. And that brings to my understanding is today when I look at them as a family, I think the biggest learning he's given is it's bonded the family together. He's the biggest glue factor to that whole family. The mother has found a calling, if I may use that term, instead of being the mother, the housewife, the daughter-in-law, and all of that. She has carved out a niche for herself. She's learned many therapies. She's practicing in the world of holistic healing today, and her biggest catalyst, I would say, is her son. And in the few sessions that I've done with him, I, as a therapist, if I may say this, I used to find each session very humbling. There was, just imagine this beautiful potential light source in your room for that 1 hour, and you're sitting and thinking, what am I going to give you? You're already giving me so much because I'm receiving so much of light and understanding in the presence of this soul who's with me. So I would look at my sessions with him literally as a blessing. And I'm so glad that the family today sees it. And that then brings me to the next question. In your understanding, do you perceive or have you come to this, if I may use the term conclusion or near conclusion, that it's the matured, relatively older souls who choose lifetimes where there are these supposed birth defects or challenges, or a lifetime where there are these challenges where, because of a certain emotional, mental, physical lack, if I may use that term from a human understanding, that they choose a lifetime where the whole lifetime is about living with those challenges. It's not like they
Um,
will physically overcome it. They may spiritually overcome it because they've connected through their work. But is it an older, matured soul that chooses it, or what?
Not all the time, but in a way, yes. So if we are talking of the human the souls that have had human lifetimes over and over again, then yes, in that case, mature older souls are the ones that will opt for this as an option, that it's okay. One of the lifetimes can be to help, other people move on and other people understand their path and plan better. But if we talk of non-human and so-called alien lifetimes, then they could be pretty fresh too, for that matter. Because and that there, Indrani, it is more for their own learning also, because they come here to learn what Earth has to offer. What can they learn? So, is it okay to just come as a normal human being with being absolutely perfect and everything is just fine, and then you have, relationship issues or financial trauma, and you work with that? But the good, bad, ugly part is they don't really care too much about finances in the other worlds, correct? So
Yeah.
they come majorly for their projects, their um, um, what they want to learn from the human
The fact finding, they come for
existence.
fact finding in Earth
Yes,
existence. So, Asha, one of the things that I've observed, and when you were talking about a soul from another dimension or another universe or another multiverse, choosing to come in to humanity, into Earth, wanting an Earth experience, and in a human form, what comes to me, when we were talking about the fact finding factor, that a soul comes in and chooses a lifetime or an incarnation in a body, in a physical body, which has limitations. And limitation is again from our human mind perspective, which then in a LBL session, or in when we're taking that client into regression, uh, do you see them connecting to the fact that what may be seen as a physical uh, limitation in a human perspective is actually, from a spiritual perspective or from a soul perspective, a choice to fast track that fast fact finding?
I'm sorry, but I missed your question in the last bit.
So here's a soul that has chosen to come into a body where there are limitations. Now, from a physical perspective, by the time they come for regression, this is something that I've observed, they see it as a limitation. But what a life
Yes,
between lives hypnotherapy session or a spiritual regression session has opened up to them from a soul perspective is, as a soul, you chose this to fast track your fact finding spree
yes,
as a human in Earth. You want an Earth
yes,
experience.
yes,
Did
that
you
is
come across
correct.
any such interesting case or cases where the source turned out to be an
Um,
alien soul? And I say alien only from a human perspective, because in the spirit realm there's no alien.
yes, I have. So maybe I'll just describe the case very quickly. So this is about a young lady, about 20, in her late 20s and early 30s, who had come in for actually a PCOD problem. Okay. So when we went in for a regression, it so turned out that as a child, as a baby, in fact, a fetus in her mother's womb, okay, her mother had some kind of um, um, uterine issues. So they're not birth defects, but for my client, it turned out to be that while in the mother's womb, there was this silver ball that got embedded in her uterus, okay, in my client's uterus while she is in her mother's womb. Because if you understand womb therapy, it simply says that when if a girl is if a baby is going to be a girl, if the fetus is going to be a girl child, then she even carries her child's cells in her own uterus in that moment. Okay,
True.
so while the uterus is being formed in let's put it this way, so when I was in my mother's womb, she already had my cells when she was in her mother's womb. Okay, so that's how it
Yes.
works,
Yes.
this story, right? So her grandmother, she had problems. She had a kind of, it's not even, I don't know, how do you even say it's a birth defect, but it's more of that she had juvenile diabetes, the grandmother, which actually is since birth, she had this issue of not being able to deal with sugar per se, the grandmother. The
Correct.
mother, when she's pregnant with my client, excuse me, with my client, the client finds that in regression, she goes into her own time in her mother's womb when she's a fetus about 5 or 6 months, and there comes a silver ball that is embedded in her uterus, okay, which is the cause of her PCOD. So very simple. We ask her to pull that entire silver ball out and call the owner, and who does this belong to? And in walks an alien. Okay? And this is basically an intrusion in her space. So the intrusion being the so-called alien energy wants to understand how human beings procreate, and therefore has found an entrance into the client's womb in her uterus. Okay. The beauty of it, Indrani, has been that my client in her past lifetimes has been a midwife in a couple of lives, and has been not an assistant doctor, but more like a lady who was probably, assisting. She wasn't even a midwife. She was more like just present there when these queens would probably deliver a child or something. And she, in her mind and space, at her death, in one of the last lifetimes that she has, decides that the next time I will not simply be a midwife or a person who's just holding the baby while these surgeons and these other educated people are taking away the credit for childbirth. I will learn, I will become this gynecologist as we know it now. And the alien wants to understand how to procreate and how does it happen. So the combination in life between life, because the regression obviously goes beyond just the womb and go to your life planning session. Is this a planned entry, or is this an intrusion that has come as an attachment that has come in at a time of weakness when, oh yes, her mother, when she fainted, when she was carrying her child, she fainted and there is an aura break. So I'm asking her one by one to go step by step into the process. So her own past life wakes up, her own energy field is cracked when the mother faints, and there is this alien energy, this out of earth energy that is floating about. We have to be direct at times. So I ask, why don't you come in as a human female and understand how you can procreate? Says, no, I don't want to undergo that kind of trauma. I have been watching that it's too, they don't use the word trauma per se, but they say it's too complicated. And from where I come, it's not complicated. It's very simple. If we need to procreate, we just need to have a kind of, two of our beings can come together, and when we touch hands or we exchange energy, there is a new being created. Now, obviously, we have human boundaries, we have alien boundaries. So, to answer your question, to go back into the karmic zone and the story, even our client is very curious as to how I can be more in control, more in charge of the birthing process. When the mother has a collapse, she faints. This past life wakes up and says, I must take charge, otherwise, she will lose me, and then I won't become the medical doctor assisting births. And it went into 3 sessions, Indrani. I had to work it 3 times because the first time, and this is a really old case, 2008 or 9, early times that we learned that there could be an alien implant. So what I'm trying to say here is that silver ball is really not the alien energy. It's an implant. It's almost like a scanning machine put inside my client. So and this was put at the time of her birth, which is 28 human years ago. Okay, so all these things, when it comes together, when she comes in, and she herself also, today she is uh, heavily diabetic, but at that time she realized at the age of 28 that she has been diabetic, just like her grandmother who was a juvenile diabetic. Okay, so my question is, and a little bit of my research goes in the direction because I have a genetics backdrop and physiology backdrop. I try to put it together. How does this lead to my client in this moment and time? It will count as a birth defect because you're carrying it in your own body even before your birth. So that's why I specified in the beginning that birth defect need not necessarily be what you can see on the outside.
Asha, uh, I wanted to ask you that, you said something very brilliant. A lot of these birth defects are not visible, and now that we've understood that there are uh, challenges, if I may use that word, or a series of obstacles or a pattern of deadlocks that some souls bring into a particular lifetime, where we can, from a therapeutic perspective, see it as a choice. Because if you've gone to the life selection space as a soul, and in LBL, we see that you chose a tougher life, you chose a more challenged life. And what is coming through from all that you've been sharing with us is that it's either a soul clearing karmic debt, either which way, as a receiver or a giver. It's also could be a soul that's coming from another dimension, another frequency, another universe, wanting an earth experience or a human experience. And you so beautifully explained from the silver ball. It's so metaphorical that they just want to get an overview without the full drama of the human experience. And I have, and if I may say this, that when we had first encountered Life Between Lives hypnotherapy, the moment we see that we ourselves chose maybe one or more lifetimes in a human body, there are many amongst us who could be termed from a human perspective as alien, right? I have alien origin, but then if we go back to our first incarnation, not on earth, but just our first incarnation that we can trace back to, most of us have found ourselves in other dimensions, in other frequencies. And it gives us just that experience of when we've gone into the life between life space, into that selection space, that it's as if it was like a mission. And that's where I
Yes.
would come to my next question, that there is a clear connection between my mission as who I am in this lifetime with, I'm threading it, my life selection, because that's why I chose whatever I chose. And that takes me into a connection of my purpose as a soul.
Yes.
So if I were to ask you that, based on all that you're doing your research, I know you've written books on regression therapy and your case studies. In that perspective, Asha, life purpose, life mission, or soul purpose, and life selection, if I were to thread these three and bring in a birth with defects, do you see anyhow this link, this lacing that I just did, somehow uh, really coming through? Because when we say I am living my life mission, or this is my mission on earth, I mean, if I can say it from a very personal perspective, Asha, you work with me, so you know my case file, if I may say that. uh, One of the things I understood, that my body, my physical body, when I had had my lung issue and my relapses, there was a very typical sentence I used to say a lot, and I used to be teased about it. I used to say it a lot, especially when I used to be in hospital. uh, I don't like this body, I want another body. And in LBL, when I addressed this, I still recollect going back to the source life where I first saw, and when you were talking about those two beings who would just procreate by joining hands. I remember this session very, very clearly, where all I saw was moving energy. They're like blurbs, they had no shape or form because they were constantly shifting, and procreation was just an intent, which means in intent they would procreate. It was that effortless, that easy. And every time I would say that I don't like this body, I want another body. It was a lot of rejection that was given to the physical body. My question comes from there, that in all the research that you've done with people with birth defects or choosing life with birth defect, did you see the word rejection coming only externally, or did you also see internal rejection? Today, I love this body. Today, I thoroughly
No, no.
accept this body. I'm deeply grateful. I've done a good amount of hoponopono to this body because of that phase where I would reject it. But did you see internal or self rejection?
Yes, Indrani. Many a times. See, the external rejection is easy to assess and gauge. You can just look outside and you know, okay, I feel rejected from the outside.
Yes.
But by simple law of attraction, unless I have rejected myself from the inside, I don't really see it on the outside. Correct? So even for the children or the people that I'm talking to you, whether it's with juvenile diabetes or with a birthmark on the knees or whether it's cerebral palsy, unless that person initially, even with the young boy with CP, why is he so comfortable right now? Why is, I would really use the word comfortable? He's in charge of himself and his body. Initially, it was just as if the mind is racing and the body is not able to cope up. To add to that, he felt extremely upset and dejected that all the other children can move about, play, but I can't do that. So there is something wrong with my body. I don't want this body. I hate this body. And a young child at the age of 7 or 8, if the child says, I want to kill myself, that's indicative of really deep trauma. And I still remember the first time I met this child, and he was talking to me like a mature man. Okay. And suddenly he used words. See, I won't be able to give the entire story here, but he was able to talk to me and communicate in a way when I looked at him and waited. So he leans forward at my table here. He leans forward and he says, "You understand what I'm trying to say, right?" So I said, "No, if you could explain, it'll be easier." He says, "You know, I am not this boy." Okay. So I said, then who are you? Because there is obviously somebody that's talking to me, either the boy's intellect, or, even if he's watched a science fiction movie, there are some things he wouldn't know. So this personality speaks through the child, which is a past life personality of the child. And it was very clear that I have been a spy and now I am in hiding and I have to use my brains more than my body. So I choose a body that doesn't need to move around too much. And that's why I need a body that has either, is so called paraplegic or has cerebral palsy and will not move. And that's when this child, because it's almost as if I am the personality of the past that is expressing, but the child's consciousness, present day consciousness, is also here. And he wakes out of this kind of dream or this trance and he tells me, is it true? I'm 9 years old, but is it true that I'm not 9? I could be even 49. Said, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that one sentence, when even he heard that I have chosen this body that should not move too much, helped him to accept it. And from then the healing began. So, what you said, Indrani, rejection of the self because I am not aware of the past reasons that I choose this body, that being unaware causes me to reject the body, to reject myself. But the slightest hint of awareness makes it easy for me to accept. And when you accept, healing begins, because that's the first step to healing. Awareness is healing. It's the key to healing yourself. So you're right. Even now we have, see, we are older people, older than that child for sure. So when we learn to accept the things that have been with us since birth, whether it is genetic, whether it is psychological, whether it is in the environment or in the body itself. It could be a hole in the heart, like you said, a prolapsed valve. It can also cause a problem, juvenile diabetes, kidney issues, perhaps being born with one kidney. We have so many of them coming up right now, and I wonder, how did this person survive? For one, they were not aware they had one kidney, so it was easier. When they had it, they kind of said, okay, I've lived about 53 years with one kidney. I can live the rest of 53. And believe me, that person survived for at least 30 years after that. Okay? Because there is a certain sense of acceptance and not too much of, sometimes I think the over inquisitive, extra questioning mind is more paralyzing to your healing. Too much of analysis leads to paralysis, So we have to understand, how do you stop that? How do you accept the fact this is what my nose is like, this is what my face is like? To somebody else, this might not be the best face to have, but this is the one I have gifted myself. It's a gift. We already know how our bodies are going to be. Interestingly, Indrani, even issues with obesity and being overweight and joining a family of people that have weight as a problem in their entire ancestral line. And after 38 years, the person realizes, I chose my body. It could be my chosen defect to be obese, but now I can heal. So now she's losing inches, where all throughout her life of 38 years, it's been a struggle. Initially, it was baby fat, and then it became plump, and then it became, I have to lose by diet, and then diet led to something else. My point simply and all over again is that defect or birth defect cannot be categorized into one segment and left at that. So we are in our work and research here, and even you are adding to that research because we have been in touch differently. Even you are adding to that. There are so many other instances where that one thought at birth, that one decision that the soul makes at birth leads the entire life. And of course, your last thought in the last lifetime, the dying thought, leads you into the interlife, where based on that thought, you are now creating the map of the future life. Then you come down here, you lose the map, and then you continue to live the life. If we all had that map handy, we would accept everything. But our biggest challenge is the acceptance of self. I've seen people who have asthma or breathing issues since birth, and if they have accepted it, they may or may not need medication. But people who don't accept it definitely need medication.
And a lot of healing actually happens at the moment you accept and see that map. And that's why I think spiritual hypnotherapy, life between life sessions, why they are so life transforming, is because you go get a look at that map and you
And
realize the why behind a lot of the factors.
plus, when you open up, when you get that awareness, Indrani, the energy of your soul can travel easier into your body.
Yes,
That is the transformation.
yes,
Because
so
then
true.
you are at peace with the fact that I'm here to heal this aspect, and now I have the direct connection to heal that. Great, I'm on track.
So true. So true.
Ladies, I have to say something. I've been watching you doing the background stuff, and what a gift you're bringing to us, Asha. I mean, this session has been, for me personally, a gift. You've really enlightened me. You've given me some insights on my personal journey, and I find myself really going into your words and listening and tuning, because I'm usually very good at listening to my soul. But in this session, I found myself, I'm actually shaking a little bit, if you can see that. It's because I can feel things happening in my body, because I've been working with a lot of those issues with weight and not acceptance of my physical body. And I know I've told you this, Andrani. I'm working on this in this period right now, how to embrace my femininity and to accept that part of me. And it's just, I'm feeling so enlightened and so light feathered actually after this session. So I just wanted to come in here and just thank you so much for sharing your work with us. I feel truly blessed.
And
Thank you.
if I can wrap this by saying that, if each, and this will be my intent out into the universe, that if each soul who's chosen an earth existence as a human being in a form and shape in a body or a system that has something which is being perceived as a defect. And if they were to just awaken to what Asha just shared, and allow themselves to just open the portal, get the full picture, check the map out, access more of their own soul potential energy, you definitely shift. I speak this from my own personal experience. Sitting with me is someone who's known me from 2008, since my journey in regression therapy began. And I think I'm pretty much walking the talk, if I may say this, in a very humble way. And I'm so deeply grateful. This is like a full circle, Vibecke, to have Asha with us today. Overwhelmed, really overwhelmed.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank
And
you,
before
Asha.
we close this session, I just want to make sure that we will have Asha's contact information in the episode description. So anyone who needs to come in contact with her, you'll have all what you need just in the description. So that said,
Lot of love, big hug, and thank you so much, Asha. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Indrani. Big hug to you. Thank you, Vibeke. It was wonderful. Thank you. Have a lovely, lovely day. Bye bye.
You too.